Welcome to Get Your Mind Right. Today, we're diving into your questions and insights in our mailbag segment. Thanks to everyone who wrote in. Let's open up the mailbag.
Hey folks, John Johnson here, and welcome to Get Your Mind Right, the Mailbag Edition. Now today, we're taking a sledgehammer to some of the toughest walls in sales. We're busting through integrated software lockouts where you cannot put in your merchant services. We're also going to dress up our thank you game so well that Hallmark's going to think about hiring you, and we're going to charge into upsells that actually stick. Oh, and for the backstory, we're going old school March Madness. That would be the 1983 championship game between North Carolina State versus Houston, the Phi Slamma Jamma, where North Carolina State's coach engineered the upset of the century without having the fastest team, the tallest players, or the flashiest dunks. And the lesson here in your business and life, you don't have to be the giant to win. You just got to put yourself in a position to win. But first, here's what we got in the mailbag today. First of all, it's Patrick Hansen from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Patrick wants to know the best timing and method for thanking a new merchant. Is it a letter, is it a care package, or is it a spotlight? Then Sheila White from Atlanta, Georgia. She writes us and says she wants tips for upselling existing clients from traditional processing to buyer's choice. But our first mailbag question kicks us off with Jason Roberts from Fredericksburg, Virginia. And Jason asked, how do you win deals when a prospect is locked into an integrated solution and the software won't allow outside processors, especially when that merchant loves the software but hates the fees? Well, Jason, this is a top tier question because every rep worth their salt has run into this brick wall. Sorry, our software is locked in XYZ processor defense. Here's how we're going to bust that down. First thing is acknowledge the reality. Start by validating what they already like. I totally get why you love it. It's clean, it fits your business, and your staff knows it cold. This keeps the merchant from going into defense mode. And Jason, what I want you to do is reframe that cost of comfort that your merchant currently enjoys. Now, I want to slow down here, and I want to say this with care. I'm going to say, Miss Merchant, you're paying me premium rent for a system that works well, but doesn't work well for you because you're locked into a fee structure that's built for their profits, not your growth. And what this does, Jason, is reframes integrated as expensive convenience. Now, obviously, what you've got to do here is offer them a parallel, if not superior option. If your software stack has an equivalent or better option, this is where you demo it, but only if it actually competes. If not, we got to pivot to value here. First of all, can you beat the effective rate with digital and processing bundles? Oh, went bundle on you there. And also, can you help them on other pain points, such as their SEO, their online ordering, their website, or their reviews, and re-earn and restart the conversation and interest? The fourth thing, of course, Jason, is to sell hard on buyer's choice. Get their employees on board. Know your script, know your talk-offs, refer to your other training, get that down. The bottom line here is you don't always have to win the deal immediately. Sometimes you got to win the merchant and their trust first. And when they're ready to jump, you're going to be the one they're going to call. Put yourself in a position to win. Thanks for that question. Now, our next question also comes from Fredericksburg, Virginia, but this time it's from Patrick Hansen. Patrick wants to know, John, what's the best method and timing for sending a thank you to a new merchant? Whether that's a letter, a care package, or something more creative, like, say, a media spotlight. Well, Patrick, I love this one. This question has big merchant service energy written all over it. You're not just closing deals here. You're building relationships. Never forget that. And that, my friend, is how you get referrals without begging and reduce churn without a support ticket. Let's break this down. First of all, timing is everything. There are two perfect windows for your thank you moment. And the first one is right after that install. I'm talking days 1 through 3. What we want to do is reinforce the feel-good energy, and we want to celebrate the start. Now, the next time is right after that first statement, probably week 4 to 6. And Patrick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the savings, the smooth ride, and the fact that they made the right choice. Double dip there if you're feeling spicy. Now, the next thing, Patrick, is choosing your format by who your merchant is and what their style is. For example, if it's a boutique retailer, send them a handwritten note, branded candles, or a treat. That's their wheelhouse. If it's a medical practice, they're going to want a social media spotlight. They're going to appreciate that spotlight. That those are competitive, no big insurance procedures to go through. Whatever it is that makes that medical practice special and competitive and unique, we want to highlight that. Let's say it's an HVAC company. Well, I don't know about where you're at, but right in Indiana right now, it is pretty hot. I'm going to send them custom merch, or I'm going to give them a shout out on my local biz Facebook groups that these guys are the ones to call when your house is not cool. Now, the last thing here, or the third thing here, is the merchant spotlight. And people sleep on this one a lot. They shouldn't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this really easy. I'm going to do a very quick interview with the merchant. I'm going to scour their website. I'm going to feed it to AI for some suggestions. And I'm going to post a local business that we love article on LinkedIn or social, and I'm going to tag them. You know what? Most of your clients that you do this for have never had anything like that done for them. You're separating yourself from the crowd, and you're going to make them feel like royalty. You're going to look like the business growth expert that you are. Everyone wins. Now, the last thing is everyone's talking about automation right now, as they should be. And these tools are great if you got volume. But the thing is, you cannot let your tools do your thinking and your talking for you. It's going to feel robotic. Everyone's gotten these on LinkedIn. These come-ons that say, thank you for your business, insert customer name here. I don't know about you, but when I see that, I immediately go to the next one. They're not going to get business from me because they don't really care enough to see what they're putting out before it goes out. What's that say about how they conduct their business? Well, not good at all. Not good at all. Another thing on this point too, when you do this, and when I see people do this, it's worse than actually doing nothing. Patrick, my final tip here is personal beats perfect. Once again, authenticity always rules. Make them feel seen, not sold to, and watch those referrals roll in on your payday. Our last mailbag question of the day comes from Sheila Wyatt in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Sheila, I can see on the calendar here, football season's on the way. Girl, I think you're in SEC country down there. Last time I checked, they play a little football in Georgia. So if you turn away from the TV a minute and focus on what I'm saying, maybe I can answer your question. And your question is, what are some of the steps or tips you'd suggest for upselling your existing portfolio on buyer's choice from traditional processing? Well, Sheila, as you are well acquainted, this is your humble host's happy place. Because ignoring your warm portfolio while chasing cold leads is like ignoring your fridge every night and ordering DoorDash every single night. First thing, Sheila, this is easy. Audit your portfolio, okay? Who's still on traditional? Who's big enough to care? Who's loyal enough to trust you? High grade them and go after them. Next thing is when you already have this trust bridge built with this client, Sheila, well, I'm going to lead with the math on this. I'm going to put it right out there. You're processing $40K a month. Buyer's Choice is going to cut your cost by $1,200 every single month. That's a long way to a payroll ad or just money back in your pocket. Forget jargon, show them dollars here. The next thing I want to do, Sheila, and never forget this, I'm going to bring them side-by-side statements. This is showing, not selling. I'm going to use them as savings calculator. I'm going to deliver it in person with the coffee there. I'm going to make it so easy for them to say yes. Now, the next thing is this fee shock. Okay, I'm going to hit this early and I'm going to hit it hard. And so, Mr. Merchant, sometimes customers might notice this, but the truth of the matter is they're used to it by now. And the alternative is you're paying their fees forever. You walk them through the fairness, okay? your customers, we're not putting them in a forced box here. They get to choose. They choose those reward points, the anti-fraud, all those benefits they get for the credit card. They're just going to pay a little bit more. Otherwise, they can pay by cash and they don't realize that tiny upcharge here. That way, your staff gets to explain this to those very few customers that are going to ask with great confidence. Now, the other thing, Sheila, I don't want you to forget this, is I want you to stack the upsell, because once they say yes, they're primed. We're going to slide in reviews. We're going to slide in text to pay, website updates, bundle it, be ready to go. Sheila, I got inspired by your question here today, and we're going to have a new law here. It's called Sheila's Law. Warm clients are ready clients. Approach them with the confidence of that queen aardvark that's on a mission with her head down and her horn up, and she is charging. That queen rhino, Sheila, is you. Now, Sheila, what we're talking about here is playing the long game. And by doing that, you set up the segue to this backstory perfectly, because the greatest upset in the history of the NCAA basketball tournament was not won by brute force, but by a coach who engineered the conditions for his team to have one shot, just one, to win it. And when that shot came, well, baby, I'm here to tell you they were ready. Welcome to Backstory, where I take a step back before we move forward. Each week, I share moments that shape me, whether it's my time as a sales rep, my journey as a dad, experiences I had, stories I've learned, or the curiosity that's followed me since childhood. Because every lesson learned today, well, there's usually a story worth telling behind it. Let's get into it. This is the 1983 basketball championship game, of course, between North Carolina State and Houston. First of all, North Carolina State, they shouldn't even have been there. They were a sixth seed in the tournament, and they barely made the NCAA tournament after a very mediocre regular season. Now, Houston, the vaunted and feared, nicknamed Phi Slamma Jamma, was the powerhouse of college basketball that year. At the time, they were considered to be one of the greatest teams to ever be assembled on the hardwood. They had two stars, NBA legends in the form of Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, who were riding a 26-game winning streak and were known for their dominant, high-flying style. Olajuwon and Drexler later made the list of 50 of the greatest NBA players to ever play the game. Now, the matchup, it was seen by all as a complete mismatch. Almost no one picked North Carolina State to win. Now, Houston coach Guy Lewis acknowledged that his team had one flaw, and that was hitting free throws. It drove him crazy. He tried everything from practice, punishment, sports psychologists, but nothing seemed to help. Lewis said, I fear our free throw shooting could come back at some point to haunt us. More on this later. Well, first of all, let's talk about the survival run and the gauntlet that NC State had to endure just to make it to the title game. So many losses. Had so many losses, the only way they could win an entry to the NCAA tournament would be to win the ACC tournament. They had to survive 9 elimination games in a row, counting the NCAA and the ACC tournament, to win it all. Okay, no problem on the ACC tournament, huh? Yeah, because in the NCAA, they knocked out heavily favored teams like Virginia, led by 7'4" Ralph Sampson, who, by the way, he's also on the greatest 50 NBA players that ever lived. And they also had to beat a North Carolina team led by a guard you may have heard of. He's named Michael Jordan. Oh, by the way, en route to their NCAA championship game, they had to beat North Carolina and Jordan again. Now, back to the game. Let's go to the fourth quarter here as time winding down, because the game is tied 52-52 with just a few seconds left. North Carolina had the state, and Houston's defense smothered them. Derek Wittenberg of North Carolina State launched a desperation shot from near half court. And it came up short. But Lorenzo Charles caught it midair and dunked it with 2 seconds left, sealing the 54-52 win. This game was instantly cemented as one of the most famous endings in sports history. Jim Valvano, for his part, the North Carolina coach, was overwhelmed by the moment. He ran around the court looking for anyone to hug. This scene became one of the most replayed moments ever in sport. Now, Valvano's charisma and later his public fight against cancer, including his famous "Don't give up, don't ever give up" speech at the 1993 ESPYs, make this game part of a larger emotional legacy. Now, this game, it's held up over time. As a matter of fact, it's become the gold standard for NCAA tournament upsets, embodying the whole March Madness spirit. It's a defining example of the unpredictability of a single elimination basketball game. Now, survive and advance, that's Valvano's catchphrase, one of his many, by the way. But this phrase was tied to that North Carolina State run and has since become a part of sports vocabulary. Now, the next thing, and I mentioned this at the top if you were paying attention, Jim Valvano's position to win philosophy in the 1983 title game, and specifically in late game coaching, was really about engineering game conditions where his team had a legitimate chance to steal a win even against a far superior opponent. Now, in the Houston game, this thinking came through and went to work really in a few key ways. And the first thing was controlling the pace, because Houston's Phi Slamma Jamma, they were lethal in transition. These guys were fast, they were big, they could pass the ball, and they'd throw that ball up there and jam it down in the hoop for an easy two, completely demoralizing their opponent. Now, Valvano, he didn't have any illusions going in this night. He knew that North Carolina State could not win a track meet, so he deliberately slowed the game down, limiting possessions and forcing Houston into a half-court battle. As the game went on, every possession became more valuable, shrinking the talent gap because Houston had far fewer opportunities to use their athletic dominance. Now, in the second half, and this is crucial, Valvano told his players to selectively foul to break Houston's momentum and keep the game close. And by sending poor free throw shooters to the line and disrupting Houston's rhythm, he was buying time and keeping the score within reach. Now, back to Valvano's position to win in-game setup. Valvano's concept was keep the game close enough so that one shot, one stop, or one break could decide this game. Houston had blown out their competition for an entire season. They were not used to a slowed down game that could come down to one shot. His theory was you put pressure on them and make them hit free throws, which they had trouble doing. These guys might fold. Next thing is he told the Wolfpack, don't burn all your bullets early. We want to save set plays, we want to save timeouts, and we want to save fouls to use in the final 2 minutes. And all these things are going to create confusion or chaos in Houston's decision-making so that their superior skill doesn't have time to settle in. So in that final stretch, that's exactly what North Carolina did. They used fouls strategically to force Houston into uncomfortable situations where they'd have to hit free throws. They ran a control offense that ate the clock, denied Houston fast break chances, and ensured North Carolina State had the ball in last possession. And finally, this Wittenberg to Charles dunk was not the drawn-up play, but the positioning of his players and the instructions to crash the boards made them ready to capitalize when that shot fell short. Now, this doesn't get talked about much, but this is the most important thing that Valvano employed here. He used psychological warfare on his own team. Valvano constantly reinforced his players that they would have a chance to win at the end no matter how the game unfolded. In the second half, every time out, every dead ball, Valvano was giving his team feedback. He was telling them what the spread was and the score and how they were doing against their plan. And guess what? His players were consistently hearing they were exactly where they wanted to be for how much time was left in the game, and they indeed were in a position to win. This kept them emotionally engaged and confident, and that intimidation was going away by every tick going off the clock. Now, Vano believed that belief in itself was part of being in a position to win. If you thought you'd have the last chance, you would play toward creating it. And the biggest coaching lesson of all, and while this game is well known to virtually every sports fan, they miss the genius of Valvano's instructions. And that is, his position to win was nothing about guaranteeing a win. It's about engineering the circumstances so that the win was possible against the otherwise impossible. And then he created that mindset and preparation to seize that opportunity when it came. And as we all know now, it did come. Now, what's the parallel to what we do here? Well, Jim Valvano, he wasn't trying to turn North Carolina State into Houston overnight. He didn't pretend they could outdunk, outrun, outpass, or out-athlete the Houston team. He studied the matchup. He found one crack in the armor, the free throws, and he built an entire game plan to keep his team close enough that one moment could change everything. Now, why is that important? Well, that's how you should approach growing a business in a competitive market. Hey, you may not have the biggest budget or the most experience or the biggest skill set, the most recognizable brand, or the flashiest technology. But you can always engineer conditions where you're in a position to win. Well, how? Well, you can control the pace of your outreach. You can target your competition's weak spots. And you can manage your resources so that you're peaking at the exact right moment. You know what? We're not just here to play games. We are here to help you design your game so you're operating in your opponent's uncomfortable zone, not yours. We're going to slow it down when the market's too fast and speed it up when they're sleeping. And we're going to make sure that every client touch point is deliberate. We're going to keep you emotionally engaged, track your progress against the plan, and we're going to be ready to seize the moment when it comes, just like Jim Valvano's team did in 1983. Because in business, just like in basketball, you don't have to be the giant to win. You just have to be in a position to win and then go full throttle when that door cracks open. For the wrap up, this week, we dismantled software walls, we elevated thank yous, and we turned those follow-ups into an art form, and we rhino charged the portfolio upsells. And then, of course, finish with that masterclass from Jim Valvano on engineering your own personal position to win. Here's our takeaways. From Jason, sometimes you win the merchant before you win the deal. And from Patrick, thank you timing plus personalization equals retention and referrals. And from Sheila, who just got her own law created today, you might congratulate her. That warm portfolio is your easiest upsell. The audit, the math, the visuals, and then the bundle. And then last but not least, from the late, great Jim Valvano, you don't have to be a giant, just be in that position to win. I've got a bonus for y'all today. Quick quiz here. Now, which one of these is not a Valvano principle we can apply to sales? A, control the pace. B, target competitor weaknesses. C, ignore your current clients while chasing new ones. Or 4, keep your team emotionally engaged. Post your answers below. And hey, you know someone who could use this? Please share it with them. Like it and hit that subscribe button. If you got any questions or comments on today's session, I would love to hear from you. You can drop that in the box below. I'll see you here next Wednesday on Get Your Mind Right.